Very good.
And here we go. This is Here Now with Steve Struggle and myself, Dr. Abraham Weisfeld of the Jewish Socialist Bund. And on this 27th of December, when everybody else is hanging around their television and their computer, let's make contact with you all for our continuing discussion of the weekly geopolitical events and our analysis of what is going on and what we expect to be happening. Because with analysis, one can logically expect certain developments to take place by the force of analysis alone, which recognizes the forces in motion. And for that reason, we are going to do a special recording next week on Ukraine and the Russia war. And we're going to provide you with an analysis that is not available even from leftist sources, in which we will discuss the actual conflict and not Ukrainian nationalism itself alone. So, um, Steve, I was amazed. I was reading just this morning an article on Trump's immigration policy. This guy is going crazy. He's going to sort of try to stop immigration of all non-white people to the United States of America. They want to promote um, the the birth of white babies and discourage the growth of black babies and brown babies. I mean, they're into a whole eugenics like trip here. This is a eugenics regime here, which was first invented in the United States actually, and then picked up by guess who? Nazi Germany. So uh, I have the article. I suppose I can share some of the passages in it with you all. But to begin with, I think that's uh, the most amazing problem that has been embellished this week, by the Trump administration, which seems to be gung-ho to go ahead with this all. And the migration wave of people seeking refuge in the United States has been cut back as well. And ICE is still seeking to deport 3,000 migrants a day, which they haven't achieved at all. They're they're being blocked, but they even sort of got so desperate that they went into a church during this Christian holiday season to grab some people. And other people are afraid to go to church now, even in violation of their constitutional religious rights. So, like it's getting crazier and crazier, in the United States of America, it would seem to me. What
Yeah,
is your perception?
well, no, I would not disagree with you, but it's been crazy to me since the founding of the country. So, what is concerning to me with the Trump situation is the lack of denunciation of Trump's actions.
Hmm.
You would be very hard to find one politician, and I even mean black politicians, Latin politicians, I mean, but that's saying something about their social democratic character and what they're actually doing. Um, yeah, it's very troubling. What Well, the first thing Trump did when he came in office was to attack diversity, inclusion, and equity initiatives within the U.S. government. And people don't understand what that was all about. That was basically the Democratic Party's um, statement or Democratic Party's program to promote equality in hiring in the United States. People overseas might not understand. The United States has a history of discrimination in hiring against anybody who's not white. essentially. That's kind of how the United States has operated for decades, for centuries. And especially when racial integration was banned by constitutional amendments in various um, acts by Congress and laws, um, the issue became how do we make sure people can equitably find employment? So there are careers such as teaching and others, which are predominantly white, and they will remain predominantly white. But because the nature of the nature of the education, the employment patterns, um, social perspective of the professionalism of someone who is of a certain race or ethnic background to be capable of holding a position, that that kind of bias in the cultural orientation of the country has not changed. So the Democratic Party came up with this idea of, well, actually, it first started with Richard Nixon, the concept of affirmative action. Nixon came with the idea that we have to make sure that there are policies in place, we being the United States federal government and the corporate governance, to incorporate black middle class people into our government so we can win black people away from revolution. That was Richard Nixon's kind of approach. And Republican and conservative movements have since the 60s embraced the concept of welfare cheaters, blacks, Latins, Indians, Native people being racially unequal. Therefore, any promotion they have into universities or Congress or I mean presidency. Remember Trump attacked Donald Trump. Donald Trump attacked as a candidate attacked Barack Obama, said he wasn't an American, and Obama like a fool actually proved I am an American. Shouldn't have had. He never should have done that. He should attack Trump for being a racist. He didn't do it. So Trump has always been like this. This is nothing new for Trump. We're now even seeing it with Epstein's victims. If Epstein's victims were black, he told them to get on and not to give him a massage. So racism as part of the American fabric is very thick. So the first thing Trump did was attack initiatives to attack racism. First thing. Then what Trump did, then Hedge, Hedge, the defense secretary issued laws that said, well, we're going to remove books that are against DEI from the military academies and the schools that teach U.S. military soldiers' children's. It's the second attack. So all the great black, Latin, lesbian, Asian authors were taken off the shelves of the military institutions and the schools that teach the military children's. The first two things they did. This did not get the response it required. There still has not been a demonstration promoting DEI. A year later. Imagine that. So right there, you have a problem with Trump, okay, and his whole shtick. Then he started the campaign, which he did during his first presidency, of Mexicans and Latins being rapists, criminals, and drug dealers. Okay? The same way they attacked blacks in the 60s and Latins for being welfare cheaters and unequal, and they had to have gotten, the only way you got in college was with affirmative action. If you're really not good enough to be in the seat next to a white girl or a white guy in college. No, you're not. But you couldn't have gotten without affirmative action. So then they say, well, no, the people who are migrating here are thieves and rapists and liars and drug dealers and gang members. So we have to expel them all. It's the second thing he did. That's the second thing that Trump did. Now there still is opposition to that with the United States. Not mass, but it still is. Then when the South African president comes to town, Trump insults him, says you're carrying out white genocide, a freaking lie, and begins a program which I now I think I can show on the screen about encouraging whites to immigrate. White, no, encouraging, still can't show it, sorry. Encouraging Afrikaners to migrate to the United States. And there's a program they have created. Yes, there is. In South Africa, the program there and the U.S. Embassy in South Africa has a program to recruit white South Afrikaners to come to the United States. And guess who's helping them do it? Kenya, of all the backstabbing, this anti-black countries in the world. There's a story in the Financial Times that Kenya let that's well, we can't prove the intent, but Kenyans on visitors visas was working in the U.S. Center to help South Afrikaners migrate to the United States. What an insult against Mandela and against Jomo Kenyatta and the Mau Mau and everything that people associated with those movements. You're going to let Kenyans come to South Africa. The United States government must have planned this. They didn't show up and get a job. Hell no. This is a promotion that Kenyans are helping Afrikaners come to the United States. What an insult. I mean, I'm still can't. People that should be upset. I need to be upset. This is not good. Plus, they're working as a tourist, which anybody who's been a migrant knows. If they catch you working with a tourist visa, you are going to be expelled from the country. That's the way that stuff goes. So Kenya knew what they were doing, and the U.S. set them up. They couldn't even find a way to get them there on another basis. The South African embassy should be shut down. The United States embassy in South Africa should be shut down. You're having a spying agency going on. And these Afrikaners, when they come in, I mean, they're not doing all that well anyway. No, they're not. It's not that life ain't all that good in the United States. They just didn't want to be ruled by black people. They didn't want no black man telling them nothing. Bottom line, okay, that's just the base of that. That was the whole Afrikaner movement in South Africa was about no black man will rule over me. Period. If he's elected, if he's the king, however, no man will tell me what to do if he's black. So that's it, man. That's what's going on with that. And what gets me is the lack of denunciation of the racism of the government's basis. When we have no King's Day, these Democratic Party led movements in the United States. There have been two of them. A lot of people, 4 million, 7 million in all the states, all the states, I think even within Puerto Rico and the British Virgin Islands, hopefully in Guam and all the territories. But there has been a lack of denunciation of racism of the Trump administration. And it bothers me because if you can't attack racism, you can't attack nothing. Because that's going to the core. That's going to the core of Trump's program is racism. And everybody tiptoes around it. I guess because they don't want to be debated about Trump, how black people and Latins are no good and how they shouldn't have gotten into Harvard or some prestigious school because they had a quota on making sure black students and Latin students could get into these schools. All this stuff has been destroyed now because of lawsuits against Harvard, et cetera. So I'm sorry for being long-winded about it, but that's what's going on. And that's why Trump's program, that's the base of Trump's migration wait, hold on, let me stop for a second. Trump is called, excuse my language, his last president's called black countries shithole countries. Remember? He did that, call his countries shithole countries. The president of the United States used that terminology, call people shithole countries. Okay? Then he called Somalis garbage. called an ethnicity garbage, and called a sitting member of Congress garbage. Nobody announces a racism. Nobody does. Where is it? I haven't seen it yet. So these movements here are weaker and weaker than weak. They're like milk toast. When it comes to racism, they don't speak up. They don't mobilize. They're mobilizing on everything else except racism against the oppressed peoples in this country. They don't do it, and Trump will continue to do it. I even have an activist friend who did not denounce. I denounced the immigration of Afrikaners. I said no. If they're going to attack Latin people and Asian people who come here to work, then we should say Afrikaners can't come either. No, but if they can't come, if our brothers from Haiti and Mexico and Latin America can't come, then I'm sorry, Afrikaners can't come either. No, I don't want them here. Why? Because they're coming here to promote racism. That's why.
That
Yeah.
Democrats have had similar policies, not as extreme perhaps, but they have similar policies, which are racist. So they're not in a very good position to be able to sort of denounce the racist policies of Trump, because they have practiced those racist policies themselves.
Hmm.
I think that's why this movement, the No Kings movement, doesn't get into specifics like that.
Right.
And they just sort of, talk around, the issues and make people feel as if, they're doing something, but they're not specific enough. They're not
Right.
denouncing race as racism. Yes.
Right. I'm glad someone's calling it out because I doubt you would look on SWP, RCP, and I know these people.
Mhm.
PSL, I can name them. If we could find two editorials saying that I give them $5 for the editorial, because they just don't denounce, and I don't understand why it can't be condemned for what it is. Because this is bad stuff here. This is not good.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
what's
so it
going
goes
on? It's not good.
Democrats. It's all sort of problematic. It's a general problem of the left. Aha. Yes, I see that. Yeah.
So that's why Trump is getting away with that crap. There's been no demonstrations against it. I mean,
Mm.
I'd have no problem saying Afrikaners go home. I have no problem saying that, me, because of what you represent and with your presence. Not because I don't like you, but because your presence is about racism. And you need to go, man. I'm sorry. You need to go back to South Africa. Please. Not because I don't like you. And if somebody wants to condemn me for what I just said, I really don't care. Because within the left, my position is very, very controversial. Because I don't want them here. Not because I don't like them, not because they're not good people, not because they don't have the right to migrate, but your presence is due to a racist policy against the oppressed peoples here, and that's why you should not be here. Or if you're going to come here, you have to support the struggles of Black people and Latin people for human rights. If not, why are you here, man? That's how I see it, and I'm not going to take back what I just said. Sorry.
I was reading this article, which gets into the specifics of this racism. Check this out. This is not sort of been talked about anywhere else. Uh, Donald Trump boasts that he will be, quote unquote, fertilization president. American couples, meaning white
Mhm.
couples, incentives by the administration to have more children to counter declining birth rates. In the vernacular of the right wing, those who support this updated version of positive eugenics, also known as pronatalists,
Yeah, pronouns. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
will also reduce refugees admitted to the United States next year to the token level of 7,500, with most of those spots filled by white South Africans.
Mhm.
It's right there.
It's right there. What else do you need?
Yeah.
Now, to be honest, I mean, not much else to be honest. To be frank, there is a problem around the world with fertility. It's not because they're white. There is a problem with
Oh.
fertility. There is. But I was just reading in TASS from Moscow before we came on air. The mayor of Moscow saying that we need some immigrants here to do the work. Just straight up, ain't enough of it. We got need, and you know how that's going to be accepted by some people in Russia. So, But if they want to promote births having children, first of all Americans should be promoted, not just whites. Okay.
Yeah.
And secondly, you need to change the tax codes, make it make pretty much all the expenses for raising children free. You need to give parents free clothing, discounts or free food. I mean, you really have to change the whole nature because one of the reasons people don't have children is because they can't afford it.
Mm.
It's not just because they're selfish, even some of them are, and they forget that they were born from somebody and their mother didn't have an abortion, and I did just say that. Okay. So, you have to, and there's no social norm that says it's kind of that it's part of being is that there's no social norm that promotes having a family in the United States. In many parts of the world, there is a social custom that you have a family. You go to Africa, I can say that. The average African woman I have met who's single, she wants to have a family, period. I'm not saying this. They have a social norm. Having families is a good thing. The United States, that's not necessarily the case. So no one's going to attack that aspect of it. No, I bet you Trump will never talk about tax breaks because if he talk about tax breaks for people having families, it means poor people get a tax break. He don't want that. You know what I'm saying? There's a way to promote a birthing culture, but they attack people who don't have children, which isn't how you should do it. You should promote families as part of a way of a nation reproducing itself. That's how you do that, and Trump is not doing it like that. Maybe I'm overstepping my bounds by some of my comments here, but everybody who doesn't have children is not because they're lazy or hate kids. Most have them because it costs too much money. It's very expensive. Yes, it
Even
is.
the white class cannot afford children now.
Exactly. Exactly. Period. It costs a lot of money. Birth,
Mm.
I mean, hospital, just having the baby, prenatal, hospitalization, birthing. Do you get any time off with your kid in some companies? No. I worked for a company once. No, let me tell you something. I'm not going to lie about this. I worked for a company about 10, 12 years ago, and they had a union. And when women got pregnant, they were, they were, how can I say this? They were encouraged off the books in conversations to quit the job. Listen, to quit
Yeah.
instead of taking maternity leave. And these are people with college degrees. This is a college degree holding job. The union didn't defend them. Management didn't want them taking maternity. It was like I was stunned. And these were white women, not Latins, not Asians, and not blacks. They didn't hire those races at that school district, at that company. Okay. Yeah, they were encouraged to quit, have their baby, and then apply for reinstatement.
Ah.
If I'm lying, may Fred Hampton slap me right now. I'm not exaggerating one word. So
Mm.
if that happens in a professional job
Mm.
with college degrees, let alone what happens in a blue collar job or a
Mm.
temporary job or a gig economy job, it's horrible. What people have to and even fathers. Oh, and some places now discriminate against people who live together. They say, well, if you have a domestic partnership, the United States has laws which allow you and me, me and a woman and a woman to live together and have a partnership. On that we have something going on here. We're not married, but we have a partnership. And if they get sick, they might even give them sick leave. Yeah. It's pretty bad.
Mm.
So the thing about children birthing night, they'd have to really but Trump can't lead such a movement. He's a racist and a liar. Okay. And I'm sorry, they just can't be led by Trump. And this is just racism. I'm sorry, but it just is. It'd be nice to talk about this, but if you look in TASS today, they're talking about we need more migrants, and the problem is these countries, with the low birth rate, the only thing that can solve the problem with labor, AI can't solve that problem because AI deals with other issues of work flows, manual labor, construction, hotels, cooking, restaurants, driving a semi, driving a cab. Those aren't AI replacements. Those are human labor costs. Working the grocery store, putting the produce on the shelf. Ain't no, and that, that's human labor. And human beings have to do that. And the United States, any policy, there's never been a policy there hasn't been an anti-birth problem, but there hasn't been pro-birth policies here. No, not really. You're on your own. Good luck. That kind of sucks.
Chris Hedges here in this article has so many interesting things to say as well. And in terms of the migration policy, like it's like so self-defeating on the part of the United States,
It sure
because
is. It sure
who
is.
is who is harvesting the crops now at
It's a very good
three
question.
dollars?
It's a very good question. It's a very good question to find out. When I'm on the highways, frequently. There are still migrants there. They drive their own cars. See, people, it's not like they're on a bus, and they drive their own cars to the field, park the car outside the field, start working. Somebody's there, but it's not many as before. No, it's not many as before. No, it's not. Somebody
Yeah.
goes to the meat packing plants. Somebody really needs to do a story on this. What happened to everybody and what's going on now? Yeah, that's a good point. The schools, I showed you a couple weeks ago, the schools have lost, LA Unified has lost 7,000 students. That's a lot
Wow.
of students to lose.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
They'll probably bring in the kind of policy that they practice here in Canada. So what they do here in Canada is, they don't harvesting and all that is done by migrant workers from Mexico, of course. And they come up here, and they were paid, when I first heard about this, like $3.50 an hour, plus lodging in a shack with some food, what they call food. And then they're sent back to Mexico after the harvesting season. So that's probably, what the United States is thinking of doing, is bringing in the migrants, to do the harvesting and all of the heavy work, and then kick them out, after their work is done, and not allow them, to even apply as refugee status, to become citizens. So that's probably what's going to be happening here. But the degree of degeneration, economic degeneration, the economy, the capitalist U.S. economy is coming apart at the seams here. Nearly one-third of the population in Edwardian England. This is, King Edward the
right.
Second, the
Right.
one, who I know about, because he's the one who expelled the Jewish people from England in 1690. King Edward II. And I ended up going to the King Edward Public School, in primary school, the bastion of Anglo supremacy in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I had to endure all that. Okay. The cause, as Seaborn Roundtree noted in his study of the slums, was not, as conservatives claimed, alcoholism, laziness, a lack
Yep.
of initiative,
Always.
or responsibility by the poor,
Always
but
doing that.
because, quote, the wages paid for unskilled labor in York are insufficient to provide food, shelter, and clothing adequate to maintain a family of moderate size in a state of bare physical efficiency. And now this is happening in the United States. It's incredible. The degeneration of this empire is, following, step for step, what happened to Edwardian England.
Mhm.
Now, the US has one of the highest rates of poverty among Western industrialized nations,
Yep.
estimated by some economists at far above the official figure of 10.6%. In real terms, some 41% of Americans are poor or low income. this is relative, to the value of the American dollar and the prices, of
Well,
goods.
let me comment on that. I
67% living paycheck to paycheck. 67%.
You can look at cities. Let me give you an example. This our viewers can understand. Let's look at two cities, San Francisco and Los Angeles. They're 600 miles apart. San Francisco, the average rent is between $33,000 and $5,000 a month. That's rent. So therefore, how many poor people does San Francisco have in it? Not many, right? Okay.
Wow.
Let's look at Los Angeles. It is, I'm gonna say 6 times more populated than San Francisco. 6 times. Yeah, yeah. Rents vary in Los Angeles, but if you meet people from LA, I'm not trying to say you can tell they don't have the education of a San Franciscan. You can tell that the way people talk, the way people engage in life. They're working class and poor. Okay, they're working class and poor. Used cars, um, rooms for rent, people sleeping on on in the subways,
Oh,
hungry.
yeah.
When you go to a school, the kids are always hungry. They're always hungry, always
Hmm.
hungry. I mean, always, not small times. The jails are just seething with gangs and crime because the people are impoverished. That's how they make a living in poverty. So I'm saying these are examples of two cities in the same state where what this is talking about here, the level of poverty in Los Angeles is astronomically high compared to San Francisco. I'm not saying and in places between those two cities, it's even worse. That's it. So I just want to be, this is very accurate, what you're reading here. Yep.
Chris Hedges, he goes on. He's excellent. He says British eugenics from the Galton Laboratory for National Eugenics,
Oh,
which was funded by Sir Francis Galton, who coined the term eugenics,
oh,
advocated positive eugenics, the improvement of the race. You can assume which race he's talking about.
oh yeah.
The improvement of the race by encouraging those deemed superior, always white members of the middle and upper classes, to have large families. Negative eugenics was advocated to limit the number of children born to those deemed unfit. This would be achieved through sterilization and the separation of genders.
Yeah.
Winston Churchill, who was a Home Secretary in the Liberal government of H.H. Asquith in 1910 and 1911, backed the forced sterilization of the feeble-minded, like the Nazis, calling them a national and race danger, like the Nazis, and the source from which the stream of madness is fed.
Woo, madness. Whoa. But you know what? In the 2000s, no, yeah, in the 1900s, late 1900s and 2000s, North Carolina had to admit they had eugenics programs against black women.
Oh,
This is on the record. This is like it was under a Democratic governor. Yeah, a female governor. They had a hearing on it. They gave out some money. Here we have a state that was sterilizing women because they were black.
yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. In the 20th century, because they were feeble, they were, that all those excuses. Let our viewers know this is not just something that Winston Churchill was doing, happened right here in the good old USA. Yep, yep, sure did.
In Palestine, in the Zionist state as well, when the black Jewish youth Ethiopians came in, all of a sudden they were injected with a birth control
Mm,
that, wasn't just daily. It was like, for years. And they were injected, in order to sterilize them. I
mm.
don't know if it was permanent, but it was certainly for a long duration.
And
And
why didn't they just go back to Ethiopia? Come
yeah,
on, man. And sometimes you just gotta get. I gotta get out of this. I gotta get out of here. This is not
yeah,
good.
yeah.
That's and I support their right to migrate for a reason they want to migrate. I got that, But you going
Yeah.
somewhere, and when you hit the door, they give you a sterilization pill. Yo, my daughter's not being sterilized, honey. Let's go. Let's just go back. Let's go. This ain't for us. So something you just gotta. Sometimes we gotta say that, y'all. This ain't for me. Okay? I mean, how much gold they're offering you. I'm not dissing what happened here, but I'm saying sometimes like, yo, this is what I gotta do to get up in here. I'm sorry, I'm going back. At least I know what I got. At least I know I'm going through back home. No. Because then those Ethiopians are treated like garbage, and they're treated second class, third class anyway. Everybody knows that, but nobody talks about it. Anyway, I'm sorry. Just that's terrible. Wow, I can't
That's
believe that. That's really horrible.
all
Ooh,
true.
ooh.
Eh, Chris Hedges goes on. He says the Trump White House, led by Stephen Miller, is intent on carrying out a similar culling of American society. Those endowed with negative hereditary traits, based usually on race,
Yep.
are condemned as human contaminants that an army of masked immigration and customs enforcement agents are terrorizing, incarcerating, and purging from society. Well put, huh? Really?
Yep.
Miller, in emails leaked in 2019, lauds the 1973 novel, The Camp of the Saints, written by Jean Raspail. It chronicles a flotilla of South Asian people who invade France and destroy Western civilization, all by themselves. The immigrants, who the Trump administration is now hunting down, are described as kinky-haired, swarthy-skinned, long-despised phantoms
Oh
and
man,
teeming ants
stop,
toiling.
stop. That's so racist. It's so racist.
That's
That's
the
horrible.
incredible,
That's
like,
incredibly
oh,
racist.
amazing.
Oh my God.
Amazes me how racist the racist can be. It always
Exactly,
surprises me.
exactly. How racist can you be? Yeah.
So the South Asian mobs that are coming for you are oh, grotesque little beggars, little because they've been starved as children. They didn't grow
Oh,
to their natural height. Grotesque little beggars from the streets of Calcutta, led by feces-eating gigantic Hindu known as the curd eater.
that's horrible.
These images that they have, of other humans is insane. Basically, this is the most, in its most scurrilous form, is the thesis of the Great Replacement Theory.
It would
Oh
be
yes, this is what the Nazis in Charlottesville were shouting. They were saying the
well,
Jews will not replace us. This is the Great Replacement Theory,
let's
the
get
belief
it
that the
close.
white races in Europe and North America are being replaced by lesser breeds of the earth. Oh boy, now I'm a breed.
You're a breed, bro. You're a breed, man. You're a breed. Yeah, you're a
Wow.
breed. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
That's pretty sad. But
okay, Trump is fertilization president. Yeah, okay, we know. We heard that before. Okay, Trump's allies in big tech are busy creating the fertility infrastructure to conceive children with positive hereditary traits. Sam Altman, who has been awarded a one-year military contract worth 200 million from the Trump administration, has invested in technology to allow parents to gene edit their children before conception to produce designer babies. Guess what kind of designer babies? Okay.
kind of
Peter
design.
Thiel, the co-founder of Planeteer. Yes, that espionage program, which is facilitating Trump administration's mass deportation efforts, has backed an embryo screening company called Orchid Health. Orchid promises to help parents design healthy children. In the Great Replacement Theory, Elon Musk, a fervent
Oh,
pro-natalist and believer in the Great Replacement Theory, is reportedly a client of this startup. Okay.
no, I'm sorry, man. Well, let's stop, man. I'm sorry.
Uh,
These places got to be shut down.
yeah.
No. I don't. Nope. No. They have no right to exist. I'm sorry. Sometimes you gotta say it's just, a movement has to say it's got to go. A movement has to say you got to shut your doors. You'll
Yeah.
say it about pornography. You'll say it about other kind of things. People will talk about that, right or wrong. There's nothing wrong with advocating the closure of these companies. What they
Yeah.
try, all they trying to do is replace somebody with another race of people. I wouldn't want that if it was black people doing it. I wouldn't want, okay? If it was black people saying I wouldn't want that to happen. No.
Mm.
Nobody has a right. No one has a right to say who can't live. Uh-uh. No.
Mm.
They got to shut their doors. You want to go pick it somewhere, and probably in some secure location with cameras everywhere, and everybody who comes there will be doxxed. They'll get your picture and call your boss and get you fired. I understand that. Maybe you don't want to protest there, but at least we got to put the word out. These companies have got to go, and it should be a political issue in the United States. Why not?
Yes.
Why not? Especially in places like San Francisco, which is where they're all hubbed. San Francisco and the peninsula and Stanford, these universities giving them money. Why not? You can just make an issue. You got to shut your doors.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
What you do is not best for humanity. It's got to go.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Racism is a crime, and
Yeah,
racist organizations are criminal, and they should be prosecuted
exactly.
and
Yes,
banned.
yes,
So that's
yes.
that's
That's
a
what we want
crime.
a society
Not
that
considered to be a crime.
yeah, that makes sure
Murder
the
is a crime. You know,
KKK can't exist.
even murder for racist reasons is not considered to be a crime. It's just considered to be, like racism, and that's not a crime. Therefore, the murder is not a crime. Like lynching is not a crime because it's just racism. All that kind of, like
That's
inst
you said that so well, doctor. The
yeah,
racism is not considered the crime.
yeah.
No, the
Mhm.
racism should be the anti yeah, the racism should be considered the crime. And
You
then
know,
the
you know,
violence is the
it's,
crime. Right.
the racists, they use the constitutional provision for free speech,
Free
and they
speech.
use that as an excuse,
That's
to
why
protect racism.
and
Like
that's why we have to be opposed to free speech. I'm sorry.
they'll even admit to being racist, but they'll say that they have a constitutional right, to be a racist.
No, that's see,
Okay.
that's where the line has to be drawn. That
In
right to
Canada,
right. It's
hate
just
speech is in the criminal code, like, if one, carries out hate speech, one can be prosecuted as a criminal here in
yeah.
Canada,
Well,
except that
that's
they
the
don't
way
do
it
it,
should
like
be. That's the way it should be in the United States. Now, what they've done, now listen to me very carefully, our viewers, listeners. They've done that now with respect to anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian movements. The
yeah,
United States now came caught up with England and Germany.
yeah.
So it is a crime. It is a crime to advocate. Yes, it is. They may not be a statute crime, but it is like it is like a social crime of sexual assault. How dare you rape the girl? How dare you rape the boy? Okay, it is now a social crime to condemn Israel for a genocide against Palestine. So if that's the case, then the anti-racist movement, hello, anti-racist movement, where are you? Should promote
Yeah.
the same kind of crime. That racism is a crime. I agree. And we can use Canada's laws, even laws from Germany, maybe, I don't know about Germany, maybe the German law, as a precedent. Because yeah, you're right. You're right, Professor. You're right. 100%.
Like when I was growing up, there was this a Nazi, a German Nazi actually, who wasn't even a Canadian citizen, whose name was Zundel, Ernst Zundel. And he used to go around, doing demonstrations, denying the Holocaust, saying that, he was entitled to free speech and all that. And finally, and he wasn't prosecuted, as a negationist, uh, uh, he was trying to sort of, trying to convince people that the Holocaust of the Jewish and Roma people and handicapped people and communists and etc., like didn't take place, that those 6 million people, didn't die. Okay. And he was never prosecuted. He was allowed, to run around, and I saw one of his demonstrations in front of City Hall when he was under some sort of, municipal charge. And then finally, the government, like couldn't take the pressure anymore, and they finally expelled the guy, because he was in Canada illegally. Like he was a German citizen, not a Canadian citizen, and he had gone beyond, like his visa and all that. And he'd been there, like for 20 years or so. So finally, they deported him back to Germany. What does Germany do? Put him into prison for 3 years right away. Like he should have been. Canada couldn't do that, but Germany could. You know, and
Well,
in Canada,
I
to
just
be
think that I just think that
total anti-racist, like
um,
a society, but it's not.
well, but I think that um, um, libertarianism and liberalism politically has led to a lot of problems in the quote unquote Democrat countries. And thank goodness there's some countries who at least put some stops on what
Yeah.
can't be said. I'm sorry, and I'm not against quote unquote free speech, but I don't know if you know, Abraham, free speech is not allowed on private property. I don't know if you know that.
Oh.
No, 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 no. No, there was a who was that guy? Oh, the current or former chancellor at UC Irvine, Irvin Chemerinsky. Oh my God, Irvin Chemerinsky of all people. He's
Yeah.
somewhere now, and some other people, he was the liberal from the ACLU, and he went to then he got a job I think in the Biden administration or something somewhere. There was some pro-Palestinian activists at his home one day, and he had some kind of event was going on. People were there, and they were promoting a pro-Palestine agenda at the event. And something happened. He told them there's no free speech on private property, and I found out he's right. But of course, he is Irvin Chemerinsky, head of law school. He kind of wouldn't know the law, right? Okay. So the point is, even free speech doesn't exist on private property. Just let you know, it doesn't. It's only on public property.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Exactly. It's interesting. That's why
Yeah.
Klan rallies can be held in these cities. They're held openly on private property, but they don't hold Klan rallies in public properties. In the same kind of way, I can say what I want on my private property, but on public property, I might not be able to say it. That's how the Klan has operated for centuries.
Wow.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Yeah.
I have one further reference, to the Chris Hedges article here,
Yeah.
the conclusion that he made. I can just read that and then we are making the same self-defeating mistakes made by the British political class that oversaw the decline of the British Empire and orchestrated the suicidal folly of World War I. We blame the poor for their own impoverishment. We believe in the superiority of the white race over other races, crushing the plethora of voices, cultures, and experiences that create a dynamic society. We seek to counter injustices along with economic and social inequality and hypermasculinity, militarism, and force, which accelerates the internal decay and propels us towards a disastrous global war, perhaps in our case with China. Starting with Russia. Europe is preparing for a war with Russia.
Oh man.
They want to increase their military budget to 5% from like 1.5%. They're talking about conscription. This is all happening as it happened before to the British Empire. It's now happening to the American Empire.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Isn't that something? Wow.
So,
That's interesting. Yeah, yeah.
I should say a word about Palestine and the current events there. And, like it's good, that the ceasefire is sort of, partially holding. However, with the first, retreat, to the Yellow Line, which is where the Zionist military occupation is stationed at this present moment, leaving about, half of Gaza uh, unmilitarized. So there, and most of the bodies and the living prisoners of war were returned to the Zionist state, and there was supposed to be, an open flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza, at this point in the accord that was reached. Well, they're not doing it. Now, there may be 500 trucks that are coming into Gaza at this time, which is better than the 150 that was in the first weeks, after the so-called ceasefire. But 500 trucks, what are they? What are these trucks carrying? They're carrying commercial goods that are being sold for money to the Palestinians. And very little of the humanitarian aid, which is free, is being allowed into Gaza still. And they're just making business out of this whole sort of, ceasefire that they've conceded to, not agreed to, but conceded to. 500 trucks a day, yeah, but to be sold, to people without money. Okay, like Really, this is getting to be ridiculous. Yeah,
Who are they
I got to
selling
go
it
there.
to? I mean, who are the vendors?
The Israeli businesses, they're the ones who are selling goods, to Gaza, sending goods into Gaza. Of course, they're taking advantage of the situation to make a profit in that
Hmm.
capitalist society, which is supposed to have been socialist, to begin with. The Zionist socialists, are a contradiction in terms, Zionists are not leftists, they
So
just
there,
call themselves,
so there are
and they think,
Zionist businesses in Gaza selling goods to Palestinians.
no, the Zionist businesses in the Zionist state selling to Palestinian businessmen who
Oh,
are
oh,
allied with the Zionists.
oh.
And there's, the Palestinian militias who are allied with the Zionists, who were, previously they were stealing the food and selling it to the Palestinians for
Yeah,
inflated
oh
prices.
yeah, yeah, they were doing that. They sure were.
An incredible, situation. And the degree to which they're racist towards the Palestinians is unbelievable.
Well,
It's incredible.
done some,
And even the Jewish Arabs, from the Maghreb, from the North African countries that came, to the Zionist state with promises of, a prosperous life and all that,
mhm.
even they are racist towards the Palestinians, even though they are Arabs themselves.
Oh
It's
yeah.
a very
Well,
corrupt and degenerate society, and
well,
yet they think they're living, in an advanced, like civilized, society. No, no, they're not civilized. They're not the civilized world. They're the colonial world. And they're the ones who are feeding off of the labor of others, and they're not going to last. Even the 61% of the Jewish Americans now were opposed to the war in Gaza, and that's why it stopped because they couldn't continue under the pressure of the
yeah,
protests.
they were under great pressure. That I think you're on that. I think you're right. There was great pressure yeah, coming from various forces to kind of we got to do something about this. This we can't continue with this right now. This can we just put a stop to it, please? It's just, even that kind of just feeble. Please stop that kind of thing. I think you're right about that. Yeah, because all of a sudden it just stopped. I mean, all of a sudden,
Trump
boom.
pressure as well, not just, the Israeli leadership, Trump was feeling the pressure from the United States, especially from Jewish Voice for Peace and if not now and not in our name, occupying the Capitol building, like Jewish people protesting against, Zionism, in the Capitol building like that, that cannot be defeated. No.
Well, that shows you the importance of fighting back.
Yeah.
Even when you get even when you get temporary victories, take them and build off of them. Take it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
announce them as such, announce them as victories.
right.
Like, I don't get it, like all of the commentators, about Palestine are talking about, like, oh, the poor Palestinians, okay, like in a liberal sort of moralistic, vein. But when Israel is forced to retreat, as it has been right now, they don't claim the victory. They don't say,
Well,
this is the way to work. This is the way to victory. This is the way
well,
to liberation. And
I
look, it's
get,
happening. We are being liberated and we are winning. But they don't say
well,
that.
it's not just there. I was involved in a takeover of a school in the Bay Area of California 3 years ago. We took the school over because we said it was not going to be shut down. We're tired of this play, work, play, live billing of our schools in East Oakland, and we took it over for 3 months. And guess what? The school is still open. It was not shut down, and no one ever claimed the victory. I did. I just we won. We won.
Yeah.
We won. We
Oh,
fought back and we won. So you're right.
tremendous example can just be replicated easily,
Right.
like,
Right. Exactly. So you have to, hey, it wasn't what we hoped to achieve with all schools not being closed, but two were not closed because we occupied them. We did not destroy the school. We had community liberation activities there. We kept it clean. We turned it back over in working shape. Here you go. It's yours. All we want to do is occupy it to make you do what you should have done from the beginning, was not close the school. So you're right. When you have a victory, grab it. talk about it, learn from it. Exactly. Yep.
Very good. Excuse me. Still a touch of influenza here.
Do we feel
Okay,
better?
so we're going to be analyzing Ukraine. So everybody, get ready for that. We're going to take it on. We're going to take on that topic, that nobody else wants to touch.
Right. 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 No one else will touch it. Yep. 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 That's it. Okay.
There again, and the ban on my YouTube channel is still in effect, and still haven't made any progress in trying to find out why. And we will continue because we're able to use other platforms. That's what's great about the internet. It can't be controlled by any one party. So we're posting our videos now on your channel, Pantherism, on my TikTok, and Substack with further analysis contained in the text.
Cool.
So all of those are available, and they're available for you, the listener, to use and to learn.
Yes, to use, to use, to have discussions, to organize and build using our analysis and this program. Please do that.
If people don't want to be stuck in the same old place all the time, for the rest of their lives, then let's use the resources that we are providing to you here and now, and then you can use them, to build whatever you can in your own locality,
That's all you have to do.
independently, honestly, and that's what a revolution is. Not, following some sort of a leader somewhere, off the edge of a bridge.
That's
Okay.
right. Right.